We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
The dialogue.
The dialogue.
The dialogue.
The dialogue.
The dialogue.
The Dialogue, the community voice of Southern California's young professional network. Relevant discussions about the thoughts, concerns, opportunities, and challenges faced by today's generational leaders. Real talk, real people. This is The Dialogue. The Dialogue with Starlett Quarles on 1460 KTYM and streaming live at www.ktym.com.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to The Dialogue. Real talk, real people. I'm your host, Starlett Quarles, and we're on live at latalklive.com. And we're also streaming simultaneously, 1690 AM, The One in Omaha, Nebraska, the voice of the voiceless. So welcome to The Dialogue. As always, The Dialogue is the voice of our generation. So thank you so much for joining us here every Wednesday from 5 to 6, where we like to discuss the topics that are relevant to today's generational leaders. Again, this month we are talking about politics all month long. I hope many of you watched the presidential debate last night. Very spirited. But all month long, in honor of the upcoming election, we are talking about politics. If you missed our show last week, we discussed the Black folks who weren't voting for Obama and holding him accountable to what they believe is his lack of support to the Black community. But today, we're going to be talking about registering to vote with my special co-host here, Miss Jackie DuPont Walker. How you doing?
Good afternoon.
Welcome to The Dialogue.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Actually, welcome back. The last time you were here, you were talking about the realignment and the redistricting.
Exactly.
And
ex-offenders being able to be counted in their home community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So today we're going to continue that conversation on the importance of ex-offenders. Here we like to call them the formerly incarcerated. I'm getting re-educated in the proper terminology. So the formerly incarcerated, and some of them are able to vote that they don't even know.
Yes.
And so today we're going to educate our audience on the fact that in all 50 states, right? They have some eligibility requirements, but I know definitely here in the state of California, if you are a ex-offender or you're formerly incarcerated, you can now register to vote based on certain eligibility requirements. So this week and next week, we're going to be talking to the audience of the ex-offenders or the formerly incarcerated and young adults who we are encouraging to not only mobilize and vote, but register. You can register now online up until, October 22nd?
In California, October 22nd.
Okay.
There are some states where you can register through Election Day.
Okay.
So that's why we're advising everyone, check your area.
Okay, very good. So did you watch the debates last night?
I did indeed.
What'd you think?
I want you to know that I was so happy to see the contestants with a level of honest sharing that I had not seen. And I believe that I saw the president be the president.
All right. Okay. And then what do you think about Romney? I thought he was just so antagonistic.
I thought he's trying hard. And I thought the questions were not answered.
Okay.
I did not see the sincerity nor the real in your gut, in your heart response. I thought it was very rehearsed.
Okay, very good. Well, tonight we're going to be encouraging everyone to see the last debate on Monday at 6 p.m. But tonight we are going to be talking about registering. You still have time to register. Like Jackie said, if you're here in the state of California, you can register online up until October 22nd. And in some states, you can register on the actual election day. So this is one of the most important elections in our American history, and we definitely want you to be a part of it. Again, if you missed last week's show, please check us out on thedialoguela.com or like us at facebook.com/thedialoguela. Now, our guest today will include, of course, my co-host, Miss Jackie DuPont Walker, who is the director of the AME Social Action Commission, in addition to so many other things that Jackie does.
And social action for Delta Sigma Theta,
for
Century
Delta Sigma
City
Theta,
chapter.
and for Ward AME, and
Yes.
she was a commissioner for the redistrict. I mean, Jackie is just all over the place. So, but we support her, and we appreciate all the work that she's doing here, especially in South LA's community. But we have Bishop Theodore Kirkland Sr., who is the presiding bishop of the 5th Episcopal District of the AME Church, joining us here today, as well as Minister Leslie Maliki, the director of the African American Ministries Leadership Council. And these three groups, including Delta Sigma Theta, have come up with a program called Operation EMR. And EMR stands for
Operation Educate, Mobilize, Register.
And
it's an emergency.
It absolutely is an emergency. So they're here today to talk about their initiative to register the formerly incarcerated and young adults ages 18 to 39 to be able to get out and vote and register this upcoming election. So when we come back, we're going to get into our conversation with the bishop. And we want to hear from you. Give us a call, 323-247-7443. Again, that's 323-247-7443. And before we go to a commercial break, I just want to give a shout out to my friends at the Social Justice Learning Institute here in Inglewood, California. Shout out to Derek, Dart, Nicole, Micah, and Danny. And my new friends that I met today, Carlos and Q. Thank you so much for tuning in. And we're going to take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to start our conversation on registering the formerly incarcerated and young adults to vote with Bishop Theodore Kirkland Sr., presiding bishop of the AME Church, 5th District of the Episcopal denomination. We'll be right back.
We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Hey, Los Angeles, are you getting out to vote on Tuesday, November 6, 2012? I know I am. Hey, this is Richard Carr, General Manager for LA Talk Live, encouraging all the citizens of Los Angeles to get out and vote on Election Day 2012. As you know, this is one of the most important elections in our American history, and we need everyone in LA to register, vote, and have a voice on November 6, 2012. If you haven't registered to vote, don't even worry about it. You've got until midnight, October 22nd. And now you can even register to vote right online. That's right. If you have a signature file online with the DMV or a state-issued ID number, you can now register to vote at registertovote.ca.gov. That is registertovote.ca.gov. And be sure to tune in on Tuesday, November 6, 2012 for LA Get Out and Vote, broadcasting live all day right here at LA Talk Live and the Talk Live Broadcast Network. We'll be broadcasting live Election Day coverage from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., keeping you tuned into Election Day news all day right here on LA Talk Live, the world's only reality radio network where it's more than just talk. Now, LA, get out there and make some change.
Hands can do incredible things. This is the sound of 326 hands playing Mozart. This is the sound of 10,942 hands showing appreciation. 64 hands building a house for the homeless. 142 hands swimming a triathlon. 18 hands winning the big game. And this is the sound of 2 hands helping to save a life. It's called Hands Only CPR, and it's recommended by the American Heart Association. If an adult suddenly collapses, call 911, then push hard and fast in the center of their chest until help arrives. It's incredibly easy and effective. Hands can do incredible things, but nothing compares to using them to help save a life. Find out more about this latest method of CPR at handsonlycpr.org. A message from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the dialogue. Real talk, real people. I am your host, Starlett Quarles, and I'm joined today by my special co-host for the next 2 weeks, actually, Miss Jackie DuPont Walker, chair of the AME Social Action Commission. And on the phone, we have the presiding bishop of the 5th Episcopal District, Bishop Theodore Kirkland Sr., the 5th Episcopal District of the AME Church, the down-home preacher with the uptown message. He was the former pastor of Brookings AME for the past 20 years. Please welcome Bishop Kirkland to the dialogue. Hello, sir. Bishop? Okay, he's going to be returning with us in just a second, but in the interim, I'm going to talk to you, Jackie, about the actual AME Social Action Commission. So tell me, what is the AME Social Action Commission? You are the chair. So tell us what it is that this organization does.
Actually, I'm the director in the AME Church, which has a commission and a mission to be the voice for the voiceless and to be out in the world making a difference. There is a commission that has the task of identifying where we need to be and making sure that message is shared among the 6,000 congregations in the U.S. and those outside of the U.S. So we have domestic agendas, social justice agendas, human rights agendas. And we try to prescribe, along with the commissioners who are elected to serve on the commission, what we should be doing at any given time. We try to resource as much as possible local congregations that may have issues peculiar to their local area. The chair is Bishop Reginald T. Jackson, and the chair is always one of the bishops of our church. So the Social Action Commission does research, it provides tools, and it activates. So at this time, we're activating the local congregation so that they do what they would normally do, but we do it in a uniform and connected way.
I love it. So how long has the commission been in place?
The commission was actually established back in the 1950s, but the commitment to social action started in 1787.
Oh, okay. Very good. And I believe we have the bishop on the line. Bishop, you there?
I am here.
Hi, welcome to the dialogue.
Well, I'm happy to be alive. Thank God.
Well, we are too. And I introduce you as the down-home preacher with the uptown message. So I know you're going to have a message for us today about registering the formerly incarcerated and young adults to vote this upcoming election season. Now, briefly, I was talking to Jackie about the AME Social Action Commission as a program of the AME Church. So can you share with us a little bit about the history of the AME Church and its relationship to the civil rights movement?
Yeah, well, the AME Church started in 1787 in a blacksmith shop. We were removed from our knees at the White United Methodist Church. Well, it's United Methodist now. It was called the Methodist Episcopal Church at that time. And several of our people who had been pulled from their knees, they got up and walked out and decided that they wanted to be Methodists and they wanted to operate under an Episcopal form of government where the rules start up and come down rather than a congregational government. So they added the A to it, and they became the African Methodist Episcopal Church. And today that church has 3.5 million people, over 9,000 pastors, 3,800 presiding elders, and all kinds of organizations. And it's actually called the International African Methodist Episcopal Church because it spreads around the world. And social action, of course, that was the first act of social action when they walked out of the church and said, before we will be treated wrongly in a church setting, we will start our own church. And we've done quite well. We have several here in the 5th Episcopal District. I preside over about 15 states from St. Louis up to Alaska and all of the states in between. And we've always been involved in the civil rights movement. In fact, Brown Chapel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Selma, Alabama, that's where crossing the Edmund Pettus Bridge started out of that church when other churches would not allow Martin Luther King to hold meetings in those churches. The AME Church opened its doors because our motto is God our Father, Christ our Redeemer, and mankind, our brothers and sisters. So we minister to everybody, and the mission of our church is to preach the gospel.
Excellent. Now, you said you are the presiding bishop over the 5th district of the AME Church. Why is this election so important to your members in your district?
It is so very important because it determines, the election will determine the future for our people. And we believe that if the vote gets out and we elect the person in office, we will be able to have, we believe, a much better future.
Mm-hmm. Now, I was sharing, or Jackie was sharing with us about Operation EMR. And its partnership with the other organizations. So discuss Operation EMR, its purpose, and why you've partnered with the organizations Delta, Sigma Theta.
Well, we partnered with them because we realize that when we come together, we actually provide much more strength. Mm-hmm. Because, if we're standing out there alone, we're not nearly as strong as we would be and they have some of the same concepts and ideas and concerns that we have. So if we put it all together, I believe that we can really affect change in this country.
Mm-hmm. Now, your focus in terms of some of your demographics, in terms of registering to vote, are the formerly incarcerated and young adults. Why are you choosing to focus on these two populations?
Well, we focus on the young adults because we definitely want a great future. I have one grandson, he's 15, and I want to see his future very active and alive. And if we go in another direction and we do not get the vote out, it might have a way of dwarfing my grandson's future and other children that I deal with and other young adults between 18 and 29. Okay. And of course, the incarcerated, once they pay their dues, they need to be included in helping decide what the nation will be like and help decide our future.
And there's and I'm so glad that you're focused on specifically the formerly incarcerated, because there's so many that don't know that once they completed their dues, that they do have the ability to register and vote. I was just having a discussion today with some from members who are formerly incarcerated, and they had no idea that they've completed their parole. Absolutely. And they have absolutely no idea not only that they could register to vote, but about the propositions that kind of directly impact them, the three strikes law and the death penalty. Definitely.
Very much impacting of their lives, yes.
And so how are you working with the formerly incarcerated and the young adults within your district in terms of the efforts? How are you communicating and educating the formerly incarcerated?
We communicate with them through our individual pastors and our individual churches. Each church has a social action committee. Jackie, that you're talking to, Jackie DuPont Walker, heads the entire thing for the entire connection across the water and here in the United States. But her responsibility is to make sure that each church has that social action committee, and then each church is making sure that we are involved in social action in the very community in which that church is located.
Okay, so Jackie, and how that effort been for you, mobilizing all these churches and with this particular effort?
It's been great, and I want to talk about the support we have from Bishop T. Larry Kirkland, who presides here, and for 20 years before he was elected a bishop, had one of the congregations who always was on the forefront here, Brookings Community AME Church. For this past time, he's been one of the strongest supporters of our effort, because each of our bishops presides over a region, and that region has to set it as a major agenda.
And how many regions are there?
There are 13 in the United States. There are 20 totally in the world. Okay. And so among the 13, the 5th district has been one of the strongest. And Bishop Kirkland, as each annual conference that has been held this season, has made sure there's been an emphasis on that. In the California conference in San Francisco is just one example. We have congregants who go out and speak to relatives they've not spoken to since they've been out of prison, to let them know their rights. And think of the evangelizing, the connection that does. It's treating human being to human being.
So do you guys go into the prisons at all?
There are prison ministries in each local congregation. There's sometimes restrictions on what can be done in the prison, but they're actually working through that. We connect with other churches also in doing that. We've had congregations who have canceled one of their services on Sunday to go out and conduct voter registration, to meet people at their point of greatest need.
Okay. And now, Bishop, one of the things that we understand is the power of the African American vote, and specifically coming out of the civil rights movement, how important that was in terms of our community.
You're breaking up on me. I can hardly hear you.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, thank you. We were talking about the importance of the African American vote and coming out of the civil rights movement. I'm sure you can articulate to young adults, especially young African Americans, the power of their vote. So talk a little bit about the importance of the African American vote countrywide.
It is very important that we get the vote out and make sure by any means necessary, by bicycle, tricycle, motorcycle, car, any way we can to get the vote out, because what it will do for us, it will determine how we'll live. It will determine our educational pursuits. It will determine our economic pursuits. It will determine whether we'll get jobs in the future. And it is very important that the African American vote, which is a very strong vote, if we get it out together, we'll be able to make change in this country. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm looking forward to and I'm praying for. And I believe we're going out in great numbers. I think the last time in 2008, we were voted in the 90 percentages. And I think this time it's going to be nearly 100%. And we're going to do all we can to make it as large and as forwarding as we possibly can.
That's a wonderful prophecy.
Absolutely. And Jackie, we saw in 2008 the power of young professionals and their vote.
Yes.
We're seeking their support again in this upcoming election. So talk a little bit, Bishop, about your mobilization of young professionals and keeping them engaged after November 6th.
Well, we're keeping them involved in the church so that they can continue to be involved in social action, because there are many things we need to address. The prison population is overwhelming. We need to address that. We need to address the fact that our dropout, school dropout, is pretty high. We need to address the whole family life, and because 63% of all those young people who run away from home come up in fatherless homes. 84% of those who sit in prison walls are people who have no fathers, come up in fatherless homes. So we're going to work on all of that, not just the social action part of getting people to vote, but that vote will determine whether we'll be able to do all of the things we need to do, whether it's education, whether it's family. And we want to strengthen the cornerstone institutions of our society, which are, of course, the home, the church, and the school.
And when it comes to young professionals or young adults, one of the challenges, and I had a discussion with some young adults earlier today, and I asked them their interest in local politics, and they really didn't have any. So it's a very somewhat self-centered generation. And so how do you make politics, or how do you relate the conversation so that it meets their agenda, educating them so that they're engaged and so that they're still involved? Because, these kids are really looking out for themselves and don't understand the power of their vote and their impact. And so we had a long discussion, but for them, they want to know what's in it for me. They're the what's in it for me generation. So how do you educate them on the power of their vote locally and relate it so that they're voting in their best interest?
Well, if they continue not to be able to find jobs, if they continue to not be able to go to school, certainly they will be able to see. A light will come on in their mind, and that's one of the things we have to emphasize, so that light will come on to say, if you do not get the vote out, if we do not put the right people in office, you will not be able to go to school. You will not be able to have your children go to school. You will not be able to get scholarships to educate your children. You will not be able to keep your family together because you will not be able to find jobs. So I think that light is coming on, sometimes dimly, but I think we still have to continue to focus on it to brighten it up.
Okay. One of the things we've been doing is tweeting,
so you're including social media. Very good.
Facebook. And we're hearing from them the marketing concept that it takes 27 hits to get one's attention and 7 to get action. We've taken seriously.
Okay.
So we started at day 61 prior to the election with a daily action alert.
Can I get your alerts?
Repeating over and over and over again. Do something, act.
Okay.
And now with the debates taking place, we're beginning to hear back about the things people have done.
Okay.
A photo of a young person today down in Atlanta, Georgia, in line the line was long. And the message was, I voted early. But we've been saying vote early, vote early, vote early. And I think that's what's happening in the pulpits also.
Okay.
And Bishop Kirkland's been very bold about making the statement, we must do something. And so we cannot continue with the business of what the church normally does with activities without including this in what we have to do. And in the upcoming annual conference, the Bishop Kirkland will be convening here. There will be a session where we will focus on the registration and the mobilization because it's that weekend.
Okay. All right. Very good. And what do you say for those people who talk about the separation between church and state?
We say that we understand it. We understand the Underground Railroad. We understand that our church says working with the poor and oppressed is not an addendum to an already crowded agenda. It's the very essence of who we are. And so we step out boldly. We acknowledge and respect the laws, but we respect most the mission God has given us.
Okay. All right. Bishop Kirkland, I had a particular interest in your comments on Reverend A.R. Bernard's comments about why some black pastors are urging their congregations to stay home on Election Day as a result of President Obama's endorsement of the same-sex marriages. So what are your thoughts on A.R. Bernard and the other pastors who are encouraging their congregation not to vote and to step this election out?
Well, our church is not taking that position. Our church takes the position that we're going to support our community, we're going to support our present president, because we believe the best man for the job is the man on the job. And therefore, we do not agree with all that he has said, but it will not keep us from voting. I do not agree because I have no choice but to be against same-sex marriage. But at the same time, that does not make me not vote for the president. No.
Jackie?
I think at our general conference, which is our quadrennial meeting where delegates come from around the world, there was an effort to get the AME Church involved in taking that stance.
Okay.
And the delegates in session voted unanimously to declare that the president has to be the president of all the people, because our theology forbids pastors from performing same-sex marriages.
Okay.
We're very clear where the church stands.
Okay.
But it has nothing to do with one understanding the value that has come through this administration, with a number of doors that have been opened, with just the spiritual value that's been added, the psychological impact on our children of seeing someone who looks like them,
Absolutely.
who's able to be the leader in the world. And so we say to those people who would look at a narrow perspective, none of us agrees with everyone, even our bestest friend, our favorite relative.
Right.
What we have to do is keep the dialogue open for whatever reason we need to. And if we cannot convince each other, just agree to disagree.
Okay, excellent.
But vote.
Absolutely. Bishop, before we let you go, share with us your thoughts on the debate last night.
Oh, I think Obama was in rare form. I really do. And he's leading us into a future that will build this country. And I think the other person is carrying us back a few years, and we're ready now to go forward. So I was so very proud of him on last night. He had his swagger back.
He had a swagger back.
Swagger back last night, and I was so excited about it because I believe what he represents is best for all of us. So
Absolutely.
I hope that it will come out that he will be elected again, and I believe he's going to carry this country. Eyes have not seen, as the scripture said, eyes have not seen and ears have not heard, and neither has it entered into the heart of man what good things God has in store for us under his leadership.
And Bishop, the resources and people and knowledge that you bring to the table will surely make that a reality.
So we hope so. Praise God.
Bishop T. Larry Kirkland, the down-home preacher with the Uptown Message. Thank you so much for joining us here today. And your wisdom, and for pulling this effort together on Operation EMR. We're going to get some more information on Operation EMR with Jackie and our upcoming guest, Minister Leslie Maliki. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to continue our conversation on registering the formerly incarcerated and young adults to vote this upcoming election season. I'm your host, Starlett Quarles. This is The Dialogue, Real Talk, Real People. We'll be right back.
Hey, y'all, I'm doing fine. Told you I'd be all right. On my way to better days. I'll stand and say it now. I'm beautiful and proud. I am what matters. I'm beautifully made.
We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Come on, let's seize the day that I won't sleep. I raise my hands up to the sky. Seize the day. Seize the day. Seize the day.
Journey Sisters bodies and captivates women from all walks of life. Our membership includes 44 women that are constantly growing in the areas of personal development and community involvement. Monthly, we offer free leadership classes at McCade's Restaurant. Journey aims to inform women in the areas of heart disease and HIV and AIDS. Experience the journey now by logging into www.journeymosaicinc.com. Toll free 888-906-5519. Journey with no excuses.
Welcome back to the dialogue. This is Starlett Quarles, Real Talk, Real People. I'm sorry, I'm sitting here getting my little groove on. We are talking about registering the formerly incarcerated and young adults this upcoming election season, and we're here with Jackie DuPont Walker, who is the director of the AME Social Action Commission, and she has helped, along with Bishop Kirkland, to mobilize this whole effort to register the formerly incarcerated and young adults to vote. And on the phone, we have Minister Leslie Maliki, who is the director of the African American Ministers Leadership Council. Hello, Minister Maliki. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for joining us here today on the dialogue.
Thank you for inviting me.
Please share with us the work of the African American Ministers Leadership Council and your affiliation with the People for the American Way.
Thank you. African American Ministers Leadership Council is a program of People for the American Way Foundation, which just celebrated its 30th anniversary. The People for the American Way was founded by Norman Lear and Barbara Jordan in the 70s as a response to some of the things that were going on, what was being said, what was being done by the radical religious right at that time, Jerry Falwell and the Christian Coalition. In 1997, the African American ministers came together and decided that they needed to also present a very strong voice for the progressive community, that they wanted to show that that Christ had different voices, that there were different communities, there's different representation, there's different ways in which we look at the Word of God and we apply it to our everyday life. And so looking at social justice, looking at the social gospel and connecting it to the Word, to the preached Word, was very important to these pastors that came together in 97. And the leadership body, it's made up of wonderful and exciting men and women who are across denominations, non-denominations, come from various faith traditions, but the bottom line is that they are committed to justice and equality. And one of the most important programs, efforts that we undertake is that of civic engagement.
Excellent.
And civic engagement is defined for us, Starlett, it is electoral. It's making sure that every person who can vote is registered to vote. And it's also about advocacy and supporting civic organizations.
Now, your program Vessel, share with us more about that.
Well, I am a vessel. I love this program. I am a vessel, and I vote. I am so excited about it. I'm excited about the support that we have from the AMEs and other denominations, the Christian Methodist Episcopal, the AME Zions, National Baptist Convention USA, the Progressive National Baptist, National Primitive. All of those have recognized the importance of it's not an either or, it's a both and, of incorporating the spirit, if you will, of what it means to be a vessel, what it means to be something, someone that God has imparted something in, that He has blessed us with, and we are to move forward, we are to share, we are to engage, we are to motivate and uplift. And so vessels is about, it's rooted in the Word of God, 2 Corinthians 4, 7, and 9. But we have this treasure in earthen vessels, that the excellence of power may be of God and not of us. And basically, vessels are men and women who vote with a vision in mind and vote their values. They equip themselves and others in the spirit so that they are light in darkness, especially with all of the things that we are facing today, things that are on the ballot, things that we're seeing in the news, that we're hearing on the radio, how to process those things. It's about strengthening the presence of the church and the faith community at every precinct and in every election. Mm-hmm. It's about standing in support of the democratic process. That's a small d, because Vessels is nonpartisan. Okay. It encourages and embraces the power that we have as voters to make wise decisions about who we would have in to sit, whether it's in the governor house, the White House, whether it's in the halls of Congress, wherever, our elected representatives. And it's about leaving excuses. This is most important, leaving excuses and apathy at home and behind, because every election counts. And so Vessels, the last part of that is that we step into voting booths every time there's an election. Mm-hmm. We pause, we pray, we give thanks to God for the opportunity to speak with dignity and cast a vote, not just for us, but for our brothers, our sisters, our parents, our forefathers and foremothers, our ancestors. We are doing the right thing. Vessels is about believing and speaking with our vote to make sure that those who are elected, those who are appointed, understand that there is a level of responsibility and accountability at all times.
Now, you said this effort is nonpartisan, and the past couple of weeks we've had some Black Republicans on our show. So are there any Black Republicans that are involved in the efforts, and how does that work?
Well, nonpartisan means that we don't support either candidate. What we do is encourage the process of voting. What we do is encourage the process of participating in the political process. Okay. We encourage people to look at both sides, those who have not made a decision on whether or not they want to be affiliated with the Republican, with the Green Party, with the Democratic Party, with whatever party. It's for them to make a conscious decision about this and how important it is in that affiliation. So that's one thing. Okay. And the other thing is that by being nonpartisan, especially because we work with the faith community, we work with churches, the IRS gives us a 501c3 status. That's a nonpartisan nonprofit status, which basically regulates what we can and cannot do as it relates to supporting and endorsing candidates and how public those positions can be. And so the church is a 501c3, is a nonprofit entity. It is nonpartisan. And so one of the things that I have been doing in my work, in my ministry for 27 years, is working with African American pastors very specifically to make sure that they stay in their lane, that they stay in their 501. And what they do is to create opportunities for all candidates, for all persons, no matter what their party affiliation is, who is running for a particular office, to come and share information and insight. And again, we trust that the folks that we provide this information to, then they will make the decisions that they believe are right for them and their family when they go to vote.
Okay, excellent, Jackie.
I think Minister Leslie has not stated the full power of the work that's happening with Vessel. Okay. Her energy, she travels around the country providing education. It's important for the voters and the churches to be empowered. And in any given day, she could be in 3 states. She's also helping to bring resources. There are materials, vessels that will help us explain very clearly what needs to happen. For example, as much as I thought I knew about the voter registration education process, I learned in the spring seminar that was convened the same week as the Congressional Black Caucus.
Okay.
So we were there preparing for this movement for this afternoon. And we were able to take time with the congressional people who were there to come home and look at our state level elected officials and talk to them about the measures that are important.
Excellent.
And for the Black church, that is indeed a part of the mission. That's a part of saving the souls.
I mean, when we talked, earlier to the bishop, and we talked about the civil rights movement. I mean, the church was integral during the civil rights movement, even though that, and it's important to understand that was a political agenda that the church mobilized in order to be able to get rights for African Americans.
And to underscore the creation of the African Methodist Episcopal Church with the 1787 walkout was the Free African Society, the statement by free persons of African descent that we're equal. We're not arguing God. We're arguing the way people represent God. And then if you move forward and consider 1955, December 1st, Rosa Parks is a card-carrying, lifelong AME. And so the AME Church has in its DNA that piece, but that is not to the exclusion of the other Black faith groups. And Vessels brings us all together.
I love it. Minister Leslie, we were, before the commercial break, we were talking about educating the formerly incarcerated on their ability to vote, eligible members who are eligible to vote as a result of completing their parole or a variety of different requirements. Talk about the importance of the mobilization of the formerly incarcerated and their voice, and not only this upcoming election, but just in the local process moving forward.
Thank you so much. One of the major issues that we have, Sister Jackie knows this, Scarlett, but we have to be concerned about the disenfranchisement of formerly incarcerated persons. I don't say ex-offenders. I say formerly incarcerated persons.
Amen.
And one is just to give dignity to those men and women who have paid their dues, if you will. They do not have a penalty. They do not have this debt to society that should be branded on them for the rest of their lives. If they've paid they served their time, then there's no such thing and no reason why they should be considered as second-class citizens. They can go and still fight in the war, but they can't receive certain benefits and have certain needs. The right to citizenship in this country should not be, again, determined based upon that little box that has to be completed when you fill out an application of whether or not you have been convicted of a felony. So the whole process, and the reason why it's important and we incorporate it in the Vessels work is two things. One is to work with those persons who have not been charged. We still have an opportunity. We've got brothers and sisters who are sitting in jail who could not make bond, who may be there for 6 months to a year to serve some time. Those persons can be registered and given an absentee ballot so that they can vote in the elections.
Wow.
So that's the one group. But the second group, those that have been disenfranchised, there's a website, Project Vote, www.projectvote.org. Project Vote, PROJECTVOTE.org. On that website, you will find information about the states. And the reason why I'm saying states is because your audience has an audience. We have family that is on the East Coast, West Coast, North Side, South Side, all over the place.
Right.
And I don't know about your family, but I got family who are formerly incarcerated.
I think we all got family.
So where they are, I need to be able to tell them what their rights are. And so you can get that information again on that Project Vote. So for example, in California, your voting rights are restored after completion of the sentence. So that means that you can be on probation and vote. A lot of people don't know that. There's only 4 states in the country that allows that to happen.
Also, if you have a misdemeanor, too.
Say that again?
Also, if you have a misdemeanor in the state of California, you can also register to vote.
Yes. And so the ongoing effort to register register this population to vote, and then to get them to vote. And those that are in states where they cannot vote, they can still assist in registering and educating others. But the reason why it's important is because we got too many brothers and sisters who have served time.
Absolutely.
We've got too many brothers and sisters who have that felony listed on them, and they may have not even served time. They may have just been involved in an altercation and took a plea bargain, which happens quite often for our young black men. The lawyers say to them, instead, let us do this. Instead of you serving jail time, just plead guilty to a lesser offense. You're on probation a couple of years, but you have the felony label applied to you for the rest of your life.
Now, how receptive are the formerly incarcerated to your efforts of getting them to register to vote, especially when some of them may not trust the system that put them behind bars in the first place?
It's just like we are in ministry, the ministry of presence. There are no perfect systems that are available to us anywhere that we go. That's one of the reasons why we put out information. Our website is www.vesselsvote.org. You can go there and the top 10 things that you need to know to go to the polls. Why vote? What are the reasons that it's important to vote? The population is receptive because at the end of the day, when we get to talking about the judges, and that many of our judges are elected, and those that aren't elected are appointed, and those that are appointed have been appointed by somebody who has been elected, that there's a dynamic there, power dynamic that's underutilized. When we talk about the emphasis and emphasize family unification, reunification, when we talk about what it means to reduce recidivism by having the kind of programs in place so that it's not just about job readiness, but it's also about having people a place to go once they're ready. So those are things that we connect to the vote. And when they hear those things, it starts to resonate with their spirit, with their heart, and with their mind. And that's the reason why we get more and more. And plus, not to take away from members within that community, formerly incarcerated community, that have already organized themselves as advocates and see the power of them raising their own voices for the rights that they may not have had while they were serving time, but the rights that they want to make sure others have who may have to serve time in the future.
Now, what type of impact do you think that would have if we just really changed the mindset of some of our formerly incarcerated to vote and mobilize them across the country? I mean, all 50 states have some eligibility requirements, but if we really educated this population on how powerful that little check mark is, I mean, what type of impact do you think we could have?
Well, when you consider that it, we keep hearing this number between 5 million and 7 million unregistered voters in the 2008 elections who were eligible. Think about the fact that that it has been estimated by the Census Bureau that there were close to, if not 2 million persons who were formerly incarcerated who could have registered and voted but did not have that information.
Excellent. Jackie, when you were here, you were talking about the realignment and the reentry last year. How can the formerly incarcerated have a stronger voice when it comes to issues like the realignment if they were registered voters? I
think a significant part of the reentry challenge happens when persons who come out believe that the doors are shut everywhere.
Okay.
And understanding, as Minister Leslie said, that I can really impact the person who appears not to care as my state senator, my assembly person, the governor, the congressperson, that I can make a difference. It gives the same kind of inclusion that we have. Just an example, last week we had a seminar in Northern California where we talked about the fact that persons who had a felony who had completed probation or parole could vote. During the lunch period, one lady went to find 5 relatives who she knew had been formerly incarcerated.
Wow.
She was able to register and bring back cards for 4 of them.
Wow.
While it made her feel wonderful about those 4, She talked about the value of reconnecting with them. They had something to talk about. And so now we know where the problems are solved in our community. In the barbershop, where we sit sometimes on the corner, those persons can now empower others. You know, man, we can register and vote. We can solve the problems for real, not just virtual problem solving. We can actually make a difference. So I think that's where we see a value, and especially for women who go to prison, who are not able to reconstitute their families, their kids remain in foster care. They can believe that I can do something. There's something that I have the power to do, and that somebody has welcomed me home.
Okay. Absolutely. In this upcoming election, and I know here in California, we have some propositions that the formerly incarcerated should definitely lend their voice to. Specifically, Proposition 34 about the death penalty and Proposition 38 about the three strikes law. So, Jackie, I want you to talk a little bit about that. And then, Minister Leslie, if there's some propositions locally in Washington that the formerly incarcerated should be aware of, please let us know of those. Jackie, talk about Proposition 34 and 38.
I think here in California, and I want the listening audience to take this very, very seriously, many of us have been in pain about the three strikes law.
Absolutely.
And we've heard the stories of the person whose third offense was stealing a loaf of bread, and now they're put away for life. Proposition 38 gives a possibility that if the third strike is a nonviolent crime, that will not have the mandatory sentencing for life. We know that the prison industrial complex is getting rich.
Absolutely.
And even the persons who create, design something in jail cannot come out and get the same job because of having to check the box.
Absolutely.
We know that we create this opportunity for them to stay out and to be rehabilitated. And rehabilitation still has to be the order of the day. But then Proposition 34 is extremely important because it says that California has made a decision that every life is so important that we will not risk having someone die in the electric chair accidentally. That there will not be another Troy Davis. And Troy Davis's family was in town this past weekend, and they continue to affirm his innocence. But Troy Davis is not with us anymore, and they cannot be anymore because there is no coming back at that point. So if we will say that's important, that it doesn't matter about the amount of money that's being spent to keep them alive if we risk one person being killed by error. By accident. And you talked about the plea bargaining. That's extremely important because many of the public defenders are overloaded as they go, and they will say, oh, just take a plea. That means someone has a guilty verdict. They have a record, and that begins to build. So we have 34 and 38, and sadly enough, many of the people educating about the polls are walking around 34 and 38 in our community. If you're ever in a forum and they discuss the propositions and fail to raise 34 and 38, it's important to raise those two.
Absolutely, absolutely. Minister Leslie, what's happening in terms of your community and propositions that the formerly incarcerated, and including young adults, which we're about to talk about, that they need to be more cognizant about?
Well, there are, Vessels is a national program.
Okay, excellent.
And so we are in majority of the states, and probably have what we've counted so far, at least 1,000 churches that are participating. But what I wanted to raise was this is really important. The ballot initiatives, all of the ballot initiatives are important to formerly incarcerated persons because they are citizens, they are residents, they are taxpayers, they are parents, they are a part of the community. So there are some that certainly there are more emphasis on than others. But for me, one of the things that I'm sharing nationally is that what we've got to do is to make sure that persons are voting and that they're not doing what's called straight ticket voting. They're not just looking at just voting for the candidates and voting for the candidates of their particular party and forgetting about or not taking the time to look at those ballot initiatives, those ballot measures. So we often just take up enough time to, again, many of our folks may just go in and cast their vote for the office of presidency.
Right.
And then that's all they're concerned about.
Right.
They may get to the Congress. They may get to the municipalities or the state. But underneath there, for example, in Florida has 11 ballot initiatives that will be on the November 12th, November 6th election, up for election, and many of the folks that they are being very intentional now in trying to educate people to make sure that yes, they take care of the political parties and vote for the candidates, but they have got to take the time, read, receive information before going to the poll, in the way that Sister Jackie just shared about those two propositions. Become informed, and then when you go to the polls, when you're in that polling booth, you absolutely know what to vote, not just who you want to vote for, but what you need to vote for to enhance quality of life, to make sure that the community is healthier, to give the community what it needs to be vibrant, and especially in times like these. So so there are many states where there are many ballot initiatives that are happening all over the place, and my position is that formerly incarcerated persons, young adults, everybody needs to be aware of everything that's on the ballot, and they need to cast a vote in support or in opposition to all of those measures. But let us not lose sight of how important those measures are.
Now, before the commercial break, we were talking about mobilizing or registering young adults and the importance of that, and we saw that with the 2008 election.
Yeah.
How do we keep them engaged after November 6th? How do you make politics trendy, for lack of a better word, for some of these young adults so that we continue to have them engaged in non-national agendas?
Well, if I may, one of the things that I believe is really important is that individuals understand, again, and accept. It really is about an acceptance that elections happen all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Elections don't happen just every 4 years.
Right.
There are always special elections, there are municipal elections, there are always referendums. There's something that's going on all the time. And so one of the things that we do in the Vessels framework is to make sure you plant that seed, and that voter registration, voter education, voter awareness, voter turnout, voter motivation is constant and consistent as a part of their ministry.
Mm-hmm.
So our young people, there is so much that they can contribute post November the 6th in preparation for example, if not anything happening in their particular city, county, or state for 2013, we've got midterm elections that are coming up in 2014.
Right.
So we've got the Congress that is coming up. We've got governor's races that are happening. We've got, again, races that are going on. That's the one thing, that elections happen all the time. The second thing is, when I talked about civic engagement, it is electoral, but it's also about advocacy. November 7th, we become advocates for the things that we voted for, the things that we supported candidates for.
Mm-hmm.
We become advocates, and so one of the things that young people, young adults can do is to make sure that they're in front of those persons that have been elected for office, whether they voted for them or not.
Absolutely.
They are representative of all people within that district, within that county, etc.
Okay.
And so becoming advocates, being in front of their face, demonstrating that I'm still here and that I still care is important. And one of the things that we're taking on in a very aggressive way, working with the Sentencing Project and others, is what's called Ban the Box.
Mm-hmm.
That's an important element for young people to get involved in, and that box is on those job applications, on those various applications. The question is that you're to check yes or no if you've ever been convicted of a felony. That quite often ends up being a deterrent to men and women. It keeps them from applying for needed services, for pursuing education, from accessing resources that are available to them. And so, again, as advocates, that's one of the things that young people can do. It's constantly registering people. It's constantly educating people. It's constantly using the social media to talk and to galvanize support around particular issues. I mean, Sister Jackie, one of the things that I have been commenting on, and I'm sorry I'm talking so much, but this is my passion. This is the thing that I love, that my gift from God. But when we talked about the tragedy that was Trayvon Martin, our word tells us that all things work for good for those who love the Lord. So how do we turn that tragedy around so that it works for good? One of the ways that we do that is for us to address the laws, the stand your ground laws, those laws that are on many state that many states are enforcing or preparing to enforce, that we can actually address and make some changes so that the legacy of Trayvon Martin is not so much about the hoodie as much as it is about the names of laws that have been changed to save the lives of other young men and women.
Thank you so much, Minister Leslie of the African American Ministers Leadership Council. Again, for those who are formerly incarcerated, please check out projectvote.org. And to get some more information on the vesselsvote.org. And Jackie, please give us the website for...
And social action is www.ame-sac, socialactioncommission.com. All of the resources that I've mentioned today are there, including Vessels.
Thank you so much, Jackie. You going to join us next week, yes?
Yes, indeed. And I want to say, Star, you have modeled what we can do with young adults with what you do on Sunday afternoon when you bring the leaders to the young people.
Thank you so much. We cut out conversations. We're going to actually share some footage with you guys here on LA Talk Live. Minister Leslie, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you. Blessings to you.
Thank you, Jackie.
Good to speak with you again, my sister.
We'll see you next week when we talk about mobilizing the formerly incarcerated and young adults to take action after they register to vote.
Getting out the vote.
Again, I am Starlett Quarles, your host for The Dialogue, signing off as my mama's child and my daddy's baby girl. Until next week.
Thank you for tuning in to LA Talk Live, reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we're more than just talk. Stay tuned.